Welcome to another episode of Tarot here on RUE MORGUE TV. My name is Laura Hokstad and I am your host and a tarot card reader. On this show, we look at the use of tarot cards in horror films. And today we are going to be talking about the 1971 Hammer horror film, Countess Dracula. The film opens in 17th century Hungary, and we follow Countess Elizabeth, who has been recently widowed. And after the funeral of her husband, she gets into a fight with one of her maids, and the result of that is some of the maid's blood gets on Elizabeth's face.
What are you trying to do? Turn my room into a pigsty?
I had the bird!
Oh, get out!
And she discovers that this blood kind of removes some of her wrinkles and she starts to de-age. So this starts her off on this quest to find other young women that she can kill and use their blood to maintain her youth. And the film is actually based on a real person named Elizabeth Bathory, who allegedly had killed multiple women and bathed in their blood because she did believe that it kept her youthful. The whole film kind of revolves around her search for victims so that she can maintain her youth. But she also kind of gets stuck in a little bit of a love triangle because her steward and ex-lover named Captain Dobie starts to help her. As her list of victims grow, she begins to maintain this youthful appearance, and she starts to almost resemble her daughter, who has been missing for a little while. And we discover that her maid has kept her daughter hidden away so that Countess Elizabeth can impersonate her. And when she's doing this, she falls in love with a soldier that fought for her husband's army named Amir Toth, and they fall in love. But he thinks she's her daughter. The love triangle kind of continues between Captain Dobie being very jealous of this young knight, and he basically says to Elizabeth, like, I'll help you keep killing these people, but I love you how you are, and I've been wanting to be with you this whole time. You know, your husband's dead now, like, why can't we be together? But she's like, no, I don't care, I don't want you. I want to be young and hot, and I want this soldier. As they're searching for victims, a traveling circus comes to town. And so Elizabeth and her maid notice out the window that there's this young, attractive woman dancing, and it turns out she's a tarot card reader. So they bring her back to the castle, and Elizabeth asks for a tarot reading. They don't really use the word tarot in the film, but they're just almost asking a fortune teller to let her know what she can expect in the future. And the deck that they use is a little bit different, and I got the actual deck right here. It's called a Tarock deck, which was used around the 1800s as well. So it is historically accurate for them to have shown this deck in the film. And the structure is similar to a tarot deck in that there's 52 cards, there's court cards and pip cards, but then they also have what in this deck they call trump cards, but they're very closely linked to the major arcana cards in a traditional tarot deck. So when I saw this scene, I was immediately like, okay, we got to review this one. Let's get into it.
I see a new love in your life. He will lift away the black veil of your widowhood, and you will be young in your heart again.
The cards that we see used in this tarot reading are the Queen of Hearts, the King of Clubs, the Knight of Spades, the Fool card, and the World. And there is another card here, but the fortune teller is kind of blocking it, so we don't actually get to see what that card is. But in the reading, the tarot reader tells her that she's going to find a new love that will let her shed the veil of her widowhood. Looking at these cards, and knowing that they chose this deck, I feel like the cards that are laid out are specific and for a reason. Some of the suits line up with the suits in tarot. So for example, the Queen of Hearts would closely link to the Queen of Cups. And the suit of cups in tarot is all about your emotions. It's represented by the element of water, so we always see that as how our emotions flow. So when I see the Queen of Hearts, I link that to that card. And the archetypes around that are somebody who is very nurturing and mothering, which I find quite the opposite of Elizabeth, considering she is not a very nurturing mother. She's literally got her daughter locked up in some cabin and she's impersonating her. And it's a warning, and there's a lot of duality in the film because she's taking on another identity. So when we see the image here of two women kind of reflecting each other, I see this as like who Elizabeth could have been if her vanity didn't kind of get in the way of her actually being a good mother to her daughter. And next to her is the King of Clubs. So I believe this card represents Captain Dobie because he was very established. He was very high up within the kingdom. So he was the Count's right-hand man. So I see him as represented in this card because he did have that level of authority. So the King of Clubs closely relates to the suit of wands in the tarot deck. So he would be very much connected to the King of Wands in tarot. And that card represents somebody who has a lot of authority, who commands respect and speaks up for himself and doesn't really back down to anyone. So I see that as Captain Dobie because he is constantly pulling the strings behind the scenes to help Elizabeth maintain her youthfulness, but he also manipulates the young soldier to get what he wants out of him and what he wants out of Elizabeth.
Our young friend is much taken with you.
No, it's just for you, my friend.
Oh, come on, my friend. Enjoy that while you can.
What's the matter? Thinking of your lady, love?
I see that this card is representing him. And that is who I think is represented in this card that we see below the Queen of Hearts in the reading. And this is the Knight of Spades. In tarot, I would associate the suit of spades with the suit of swords. And swords are a suit that are associated with the element of air. And so for that card, we see a person or an archetype who is very reckless, kind of runs into the battlefield head first without thinking. And I see that as representing the character of the soldier who is also falling in love with the Countess under the belief that she's actually her daughter. So the card that's right beside that is the Fool or the Joker in this deck. And I believe that also represents his kind of haphazard path to death because he's not thinking before any of his actions. And I see that here in the Joker as well. The final card that we see is one of those trump cards that I was talking about earlier, but that one is related to the 21st card in the tarot deck. That's the World card. And I think it's interesting that we have the Fool here, which is the first card in the tarot deck, coupled with the very last card in the tarot deck. So I see that as kind of telling us that we've come full circle at the end of the film. And this card is also interesting in its image because on one side of it, we see an older man and a younger woman kind of having this tea party moment. But then when you flip it this way, we see one woman kind of like lying down, she's missing a shoe, and then there's another woman looking off in the distance. So I almost see these images as that woman who's lying there almost looks dead. So I see that as maybe representing Elizabeth's victims, and this is her. But the card is saying there are two paths that she could take. She could have had the happily ever after if she would have been fine with Captain Dobie, but her constant pursuit of her youth and wanting all of these victims has led her to this path, which is at the end of the film, she, Captain Dobie, and her maid are all arrested and put into prison. And we see at the very end all the townspeople kind of chanting and shaming her and calling her Countess Dracula.
Countess Dracula. Countess Dracula.
So those are the cards that we get to see in the film. And I have watched that scene in slow motion trying to figure out what this final card is, but I just can't seem to see it. So I don't know if any of you out there have seen the film, and if you have an idea of what that card is, please let me know in the comments because it's driving me nuts. I think the cards that we do see paint a very clear portrait of the events that are going to transpire in the film. So in that way, I would say that they use the cards purposefully and correctly. It was really cool to analyze these cards as well because they, as close as they are to tarot, they are their own thing as well. And they're not usually used for divination, but I think it was really interesting that they chose this deck to be in the film. And it's very clear that they purposefully picked these cards just based on their images alone and what they stand for. So even outside of a tarot reading background, we can see a Queen of Hearts, and then we see a King represented, and we see a Jack or a Knight representing that love triangle. But then if we go deeper into it with the tarot meanings, having that Fool card and the World card at the end really ties it all together. So I don't know if I ever do ratings, but I would give it 2 thumbs up for its use of tarot in an intentional and interesting way.
Where is she? Where is she?
So that's another episode of Tarot here on RUE MORGUE TV. Please remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you have another film that you'd like me to review, please leave that in the comments below. And join me next time, and we'll see what's in the cards. The cards that we see in the reading are the Queen of Hearts, the King of Clubs. Okay, I'm just gonna say it normal, sorry. King of Clubs. Upward inflection.